Roger is a working narrowboat built in 1936. She was rebuilt by the Rickmansworth Waterways Trust in the late 1990s and is now part of their education programme, where children can learn about life on a working boat. A sort of hands-on history lesson. Today she is making a rare trip away from her home base at Batchworth Lock. The Roger is no stranger to the Grand Union Canal. She spent most of her working life on the waterway. For 27 years, she was worked by the same family, Arthur Bray, his wife Rose, and her son Ernie Kendall. The Brays were well-known characters on the canal. The Roger was built by Bushell Brothers near Tring on the Wendover arm of the canal for Arthur Harvey Taylor. He was a coal merchant and canal carrier from Aylesbury. Life on working boats was hard. The boatmen and their families, like the Bray family, were always on the move. They had no home to go to at the end of the day or at weekends. Home was where they tied up at night, and they would be on the move again by 5 the next morning. The families who worked these boats would only get paid when the load was delivered. So if they didn't deliver the load, then they didn't get paid. They would work 7 days a week, 15 hours a day, all year round, all for a wage of £15 a week. The Roger was sold to the Samuel Barlow Coal Company in 1955, when Harvey Taylor retired, and sold again to the Blue Line in the 1960s. This was against the background of declining trade on the canals and increasing competition from transport by road. The Roger retired from working life in 1968 and sold into private ownership, but by the 1990s her condition was deteriorating. In 1993, ownership passed to the Rickmansworth Waterways Trust, who set about rebuilding her to her original condition and painted her in her original livery of Arthur Harvey Taylor. Roger would not have travelled alone. She always towed a butty. A butty is a boat without an engine, which is towed behind the working narrowboat. It more than doubles the load that can be carried on a single trip, and also gives the family more living accommodation. Roger was at first paired with a butty called Daphne, but between 1958 and 1968, her butty was the Raymond, a boat which has also been rebuilt. To find out more, we will have to go to the Rickmansworth Canal Festival.
Raymond is this old wooden working narrowboat. It was built for the Samuel Barlow Coal Company at Braunston. It worked out of Braunston Depot for all of its working life, which only amounted to 12 years, because the traffic, which was mainly coal from Atherstone down to Southall to a jam factory, all went over in 1970, all went over to road transport. In the late 90s, the Friends of Raymond were formed. Our organisation was formed to try to preserve this boat, because it was the last wooden canal narrowboat that was built in this country.
Back at Batchworth Lock, the Roger is attracting attention for visitors. Can you imagine what it would be like to live on a working narrowboat? A look inside the Roger's cabin will give you some idea.
So this could be a family of 4 children and 2 adults for the life. No electricity, no motors. So this is how they live. They have a cooker here, which is a coal-fired cooker, and that does all their equipment, heats the water, heats everything, including their iron, which is very heavy. If you feel it, you'll notice that the weight of it, and it goes onto the hob to heat up, and then they can do some ironing. Now when they've had their meals, there is some food left over very often, and they have a fridge. You wouldn't believe it to be a fridge here, but it is, because under here is the cupboard with the fridge. Here is the dining room table. There we go. So they have to have their meals in rotational order, because that's not big enough for a family with 4 children. This acts as the washing up bucket, their bath water. Drinking water doesn't go into here. We have a jug on the top of deck there which has fresh water. It's bedtime. And this comes down and flattens my knees, but never mind, it sits into a little ledge here. And in the cupboard there is a mattress, blanket, pillow, and it's really quite comfortable for camping. So there we go. And now we've still got 4 children to find a bed for. 2 of the children would be sleeping on the bed. One would be with their head at this end, and the other child would be their head at the other end. And that's what we call top and tailing. The other 2 children would have to sleep underneath Mum and Dad's bed on the floor. And as it so happens, they have a baby, and the baby sleeps up here. And there she is. And that is how living carries on in the days before motor, before electricity, and that's life.
Thank you.
It's a bit compact and bijou, I'd say. Yeah. I know people were smaller back in the day, but it's unbelievable that you might fit mum, dad, and 2, 3 kids. I love the bit when you open up a cupboard. That's where you pop the baby. You know, so that was quite something, really. Yeah, I was quite amazed. Yeah.
What do you think about people who used to live in this different style of living?
I mean, you can see then just everything's just bought for necessity, you know. So, and you could, there could have been any waste, but it's just the things like the health and safety aspect. You got the oven, and it's just boiling hot, so all kids have to keep away from that, and it's quite incredible, really, to think you'd just survive on there. And then also cold in the winter, boiling hot in the summer, you know, all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Volunteers are an essential part of Rickmansworth Waterways Trust, from explaining the work of the Trust to visitors to helping maintain the Roger. Today, the Roger is having some work done to her exhaust system. Volunteer Clive explains more.
There were some very large oily smuts coming out of the exhaust pipe, which sit vertically through the roof, about a metre above the roof. So all these smuts were coming out and going all over the place. When I started to look at the exhaust system, I found this sort of goo. It's an oily sort of carbonated goo inside the exhaust pipe. So the rest of the afternoon I'm going to be cleaning this up.
Just one thought is, we're wanting to lift it up to put that other gasket under there.
This little land here separates the gas from the water. So that is the really critical one. We don't want water going back into the exhaust.
Got it with the rope up to a point, but it is slipping.
Just need to line the bolt hole. Yes!
You got one in? Got the end one in?
Got the first one in. Number 2, so that goes in.
This engine's never been treated like this before.
So I'll start now. We got the engine back together again last Wednesday. So today we're off to give the boat its first proper outing for an hour or so.